For example, Scott Ritter said that war is an extension of politics by other means. And James Madison communicated other about politics and communication and about how and in demonstration of how his words and the words of our founders in the founding plan would they communicated for us to understand about it, how that was changed and measured and maintained our self-valued roles with that, and with the only means to get away with it shown by the breaching method for people to use their identities of difference as a as collusion slash S with use slash S of those differences. There are more. I believe it's Morgan Circle. Nah, with people with the name Kerr involved with Marines, and there's ones in Newington. I don't know the names of them, and on Facebook, and there's a Joshua Schumack and his mother involved with the Facebook page of Weathersfield Police, also with some KKK Confederate flag themed, and people involved with their own religious confessions, pretended others simultaneously. Like I had an algebra teacher named Riley, who there are increasingly people involved with her, and there were 4 people in the class, including me. 2 of those people in that class, one of them was reported a family member of a senator, and I don't know what they told him about me. I was only polite to him; he was only polite to me. The other 2, I don't know if what religion Anthony Agman is, but these are people into religious spots and into like cultural differences. They have roles with some Mendez police who put me in fake conversations with themselves, with police, and as police when they were kids and now as adults, with Weathersfield Police Department as people involved next to Fox Connecticut News. Also with the differences of predicate acts roles there or inside Fox Connecticut News. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed names all along Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway and Route 3 have been planting evidences through time. I don't know. They have more than one Christine involved with confessions of people with a whiting forensics. And I believe her mother pretended I did something rude to her daughter. I was never rude to her daughter when I was growing up. They're increasingly people planted. There's a whole bunch of girls and now women tied to a Joshua Stryker and Eric Oliveri, people with the name Olson and Joe DeMauro involved with their educators. I never saw a Heather Hansen on my middle school campus in my life. I never saw her on my grammar schools. In other words, there's sequence shifting when I knew people because their roles with intelligence at and next to Hartford Hospital, for example. But these are also time collusions with all sides of Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, and people involved at Trinity College, putting fake things and speaking fake things to the leaders of my schools, non-verbally confirmed roles with it, with a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members involved at Trinity College with a Joshua Stryker lying about himself and me, with a whole bunch of people next to the state judicial branch officers, also through time, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, federal evidences crimes, with men and women involved with Eric Oliveri since he was a kid. He said Craig Oliveri and a Joshua Stryker. Dean Alford also recorded, confessed, demonstrated this was true. Also with officers refusing to identify themselves legitimately into branch, like an officer named using the name Darth Vader, who's involved with wire crime acts and methods, as with the intelligence foreign and domestic associated with worse, but that's relative to where our side's been uses of digital crime methods where they fake and change and hide what's actually digitally recorded and what's actually the value of the readings of statutes and precedents regarding the validity of what is said on Facebook, as its roles also recorded with wire and mail crime methods, mass identity theft, fraud, slanders, and simultaneously relative criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, qualities, aspects, and nature that wouldn't be. Nature has criminal instances, nature is a positive treatment, negative treatment that would not have been if campuses A through Z, as they are actually recorded, being and having been sickly, distinctly criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw fact, treatment, nature, quality, aspects, and nature as criminal instances and as narratives regarding why and regarding motivations for it, and pretending not to be able to discern not legitimate roles are at countries A through Z with those names, all individuals' names, and all groupings of humanity. All voicings for the value of humanity are recorded, expressed, demonstrated, confirmed, measured, and maintained by this breaching method, tactical systems, tactical ulterior from that one that is hyper simultaneous. It is hypernated pure. Nature itself shows us the value of the difference being also only increasing value. The difference between president and chief. But where and how they have the capacity to make decipher here. It is simultaneously the difference of the people not letting the leaders and the leaders not letting the people. And one of the things that decipher brings is the involvement /S, not just of the scientific value of a human fact treatment nature breaching method, and force, tricked, hurt, and persuaded roles with it, sickly distinctly at countries A through Z. This breaching method measures and maintains people who want to have debates about diplomacy, about strategy, leaving out the complete possession / hyperpossession of all locations, areas, and states. Leaving out which really, because there are exceptions that show criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and drafting of them because a certain type of shock and awe victim / hyper victim is consciously maintained by a method at countries A through Z and capable of responding properly to a known recorded exploitation of all kinds of chaos, like where and how, for example, witch trials and slavery were simultaneous values and are simultaneous values. No matter who made up the witch trials, what it was about, too. Also, because there were other crazy torture, extortion, slavery laws, sickly distinctly against the syntax nature of every single person, and the difference between that or it being and having been against the people next to them. But then speak anyway. Go about being a natural value nature system, humanity. We're in a breaching trap. All rap. So, but all treatments of that we are only treatments we are allowed to hear about the Civil War. Only if we have, it's only voices if they're going to be self-valued roles as tools and hyper additional apparent motivations, even when real, to screen the breaching methods roles, keeping other things, others, ourselves blamed for the breaching methods cause of the Civil War. The breaching methods use /S are way worse than just you had all the sickly distinctly everyone grouped and tortured too. All that difference itself was used to torture and help, specifically to maintain roles with the array, suits and ties, counters, and exceptions. Same thing with the religions and counters to the religions and exceptions. When they speak, they are recorded, reliant upon criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects in nature that can't defend that and afford to be, let alone to protract the value of what people say, individually grouped it together, including a leader, no matter how powerful they get, including of any grouping of countries, while A through Z are still with this. You guys have other things, others ourselves blame. right where nature itself and our founders told us, communicated for us, to appreciate and be aware and watch and use for discernment of reality. The human fact treatment nature breaching method that was entrenched. That is one of the things that is true always. That was the sum value of those laws, sickly distinctly against every single person, and sickly non-distinctly too. And even though it's positive to counter what everyone needed to counter then and now, everyone's self-values that not countered, because everyone's self-values speaking for natures of industries and or natures of politics roles with uses of words like diplomacy. Can be foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought black pupils. So we are in a names collusion and deny it trap method. All you have to do is admit it. No country, because no human body naturally. Some things are only natural as criminal insidiousness, including as causes for things. It is more probable and practical to convict, as we will discern. Not a criminal enterprise, not a transnational, not a terrorists, not countries as they are, sick, individually grouped in together. In other words, even relative to the suburbs, the houses were designed before America's founders were born, and they communicated. One of the things that their communications are replaced, and we have self-valued roles with it. It's not that someone gives their life for their country that makes their difference. All sides have people that will give their lives for their country. But then they want to keep using fact treatment nature as collusions, even with the most overt demonstrations of criminal foreign influence / hypercriminal foreign influences in the form of a method / methods, with everyone roles as the plural part / parts. And that's what it is when they use the words humanity, leaving out black people's whites of eyes, projected to us by the identity of the hyper-simultaneous. It is not our species, it is not the other species' bodies, but it is both anyway. Many pray. Vaccines. We're not supposed to use the same words for God, except for where where there's a science here, and people always, every individual body, including individuals as countries. When all the other ones, maybe they should even all together, they can discern all kinds of things that one country that can't. That country's going to have something else too that could show, because each one of those bodies is its body, and using its system or the value of our system as ourselves, as itself, is forced from here, leave the Padis. The identity of all space / existence is equal relativity to positive and negative simultaneously everywhere all space / existence is. But then further distinctly, temporarily, where Earth has a special difference. That is your own too. See, too long our one little species has been systems tactically ulterior from the one that is about positive, the ways we know, and negative treatments and identity and name treatments, difference treatments, the ways we know, but also we have been ignoring the ways we know, but not been allowed to appreciate. Everyone has to entertain people who need to pretend diplomacy is worth what it is not. Everyone is needing to pretend their knowledge of good and evil about other countries' names, of groups' names, NATO, UN, etc. save the whales. In other words, the only way we can save the whales, for example, or anything proper, is as a human species body. And by the way, if windmills are killing birds, that's nature showing us things. There are no longer worms walking out of the hardly any or walking out of the soil anymore into puddles like they used to, for a number of reasons too. But they're all generated by a singular one, by singular ones. One being that nature, how in other words, when it rains, fish and birds no longer have bugs in the air. Fish no longer have them on the surface, landing on the surface of the water as a food source. So now the birds, some of them really hungry, but now all of a sudden the worms are walking up because it's raining. And the worms, that's what they do. They're programmed to walk into bottles of water, puddles, ponds. And see, we have been separated from the hypernative system. And roles of that were sustained that nobody wanted. But when you have sustained roles, you're doing things, the same things you don't want. There are exceptions. There's a quality of fact human nature that forbids you and anyone else roles with the finite details, honestly, where and how it counts relative to the breaching method, for example. Hyper-criminal foreign influences, not just criminal foreign influences. Nature itself shows this. I'm not a lawyer. In other words, we could delineate the delusions from the criminally foreign influence fact human nature quiet aspects and natures of the lawyers of the police forms and inter-services involved. Increasingly, Subbi Bajerio and Claudia Scalora have collusions with people on Valley Crest in Weathersfield, Connecticut. Is also one of the streets recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people speaking with town meetings. The differences of the people speaking, the police forms are reported sitting in the background. They're also lying about people that, obviously we all respect and need the police at countries A through Z, locations, areas, and states. They want to debate, you either you respect or not. Exactly the way the breaching method wanted to need them to. Criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. I'm not even a lawyer, and that's not even a formal term. Hyper-criminal foreign influences. But nature itself shows us there were all kinds of criminal foreign influences roles forced by the breaching method, which was also another nature of organized crime. Role. Singular. That all the colonies had north and south, too. Northern colonies, southern colonies, and it had been sustained. And then America's founders were born. And already their foreparents had been tortured, extorted, and enslaved, and no one had free speech, and everyone had to pretend other. And there were methods, and our methods, to provoke this or torture, extortion, and enslave the silence. And the difference of that use, especially worse, too, the difference of that. In other words, this is also all totally recorded. People need to go, I don't understand. It's very short words. A Connecticut interbranch have been switching and forging names with the intelligence. There's also people with the per them. I don't know them or the extent of it. There's a Paul Kelly. He has neighbors involved with people with probate court judges' families and judges from Connecticut's district court and the Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts, superior and probate. These are also people with whiting forensics, roles with probate, in prisons, like Sandy Hook has a prison there, involved with organized crime, predicate acts with their patients, and criminals also forced to keep their mouth shut before they were caught. The prison, its names like people with the name O'Brien are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. One of the ones involved, also with FBI, also with the name of, also with their treatments in the news with judges, people on off the state corrections offices, off the state judicial branch offices, locations next to it, or people just driving by, including like Weathersfield Pizza House has a Stephen Stockwell, who people the intelligence associated with New Britain has a campus called Central Connecticut State University and in New Britain, Connecticut, and they have predicate acts intercampuses and with exceptions intercities with people at and next to the state judicial branch offices like Weathersfield Pizza House. And they have wire crime acts and methods with the Weathersfield police that also involves them switching and forging names, also with courts, and changing and faking what's digitally recorded. Also with people, a whole bunch of people tied to people with wire crimes at Weathersfield police in their confessions regarding the name Cololo given with no last name, and regarding the name Phil Cololo, who was involved also with confessions of a Bob Chase and others who are involved with medical and sexual and legal offender roles with organized crime bodies and different natures of organized crimes themselves, and the difference of that also used, where and how it's recorded, how such sick subject treatments have stayed so long, even though we all know there are so many ways. See, we sense we being and know we are shocked and awe relative to how many ways at once we see people with fake seriousness tied to the most serious things. And the nature of debate contains quality aspects of nature being and having been used remotely. Like, for example, regarding anything serious. First of all, relative to how predicate acts, they change people's what they say or fake what they say if they mention predicate acts properly. There are constantly people influencing others. The difference between overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a whole bunch of different countries. The news, the names next to them. People associate a corner of streets with them with stories next to crime scenes, not just legitimately for the reasons of physics. See, those things are used to screen what has been involved with every shadow, with corners of streets, corners of buildings manifest. A Rick Paglione sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. There's a Brian Silver, and there's a Brendan Leahy, and his father is involved with them also with a Tim O'Brien through time, planting evidences at the corner of Highcrest Street and Hangdog Lane. And with a proven child abuser leader of the kids. And he recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed people involved with them also with abuses, forced organized crime acts and roles of the daughter of a principal when I was at that school, and Aaron Murphy is involved with them also with organized crime, predicate acts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting evidences at roles, and having other people film it as influence to roles. At Quinnipiac University involved. Also with a Fred Gruzet, who's the only time I ever saw him around a Rick Paglione. Fred Gruzet is also one of the ones involved with security at schools, intercities, and people with private schools who are planting evidences at roles, inclusions at and next to campuses. Increasingly, people all along Route 3 have roles with probate court judges, family members, who also had roles with themselves intimately and professionally, and other boyfriends and girlfriends at the same time. And they mix them into the identity theft, fraud, slander roles. Has something to do with their roles all along town lines. And like where the Berlin Turnpike runs Weathersfield into Hartford, Connecticut. In other words, there are 3 spots at the end of that Berlin Turnpike. there's a Sandra. I don't remember if it was a Sandra Spada or an Antonietta Spada at the end of the Berlin Turnpike. Their influence to film a fake exception of knowing me, per the intelligence community themselves, but also per other countries and the hyper intelligence involved at the same time. And this with and as rolls with the World Trade Center attack and all the names of countries involved with subjects in the news. And for example, in the live streams of Judge Napolitano, these people are roles with nature itself shows us, and our founders communicated for us to understand the reason there were needs for jobs that were incapable of being defended. In other words, there's still roles with the breaching method, the torture, extortion, slavery, identity theft, fraud, slander method, and motivations for roles with it to screen its own. That's why interbranch changes and fakes what people say already. They were shown by the breaching method. They needed to hide how they made readings of statutes and precedents and backgrounds sickly distinctly. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. Just like the readings of it and the explanations of it syntactically, the difference between that too. They are valuing and have valued being used remotely, criminally foreign influence, names on all sides of criminal and civil cases. And the courts' names, the names of their different positions with the courts, victims, advocates, increasingly collusion/S at all natures of crime scenes, with all natures of different racketeering roles, worse than crime scenes. Increasingly, people tied to Eric Oliveri stacked fake things in databases against me behind my back, and their roles with leaders of kids and kids with collusions with that. Forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, self-value with influences from off campuses too. Important because use/S timed as collusions with use of locations. Use/S of locations is one of the things that connects people involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts. In the backgrounds involved with the overt ones, like Connecticut's Channel 3 News recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, a whole bunch of things at once because, and pretending other, they faked conversations with me and about the World Trade Center attack, and they faked conversations with me with other people and with doctors, and they did this when I forced them, forcing a child abuser leader of the kid, proven anyways, leader of the kids. There were more medical offenders of kids and roles with that, like a Leahy family that also has their daughter involved with digital crimes and with more obscure pictures, roles the FBI had and has with Twitter, and their roles with other agencies and courts, where how they are shown they need to hide what they used the agencies for as collusions with, like, for example, Joshua Julian is involved with predicate acts with a whole bunch of people tied to and as a former director of the FBI associated with a principal being, upskirt nature, who has other digital and wire crimes in Wethersfield Police, and they're forging and switching names, and their roles with other agencies in foreign countries, also with Hotmail, stealing my Hotmail and having roles with the differences between what's their motivation. Oh, but this is because the country, after that, we take your thing. These are people involved with predicate acts. In other words, Hotmail, please. They took all these poems from me, and it has roles with people at 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to lie about me to girls that I don't know at all, and ones I know. And the difference of that role is with 3 people at the spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike. As people enter cities at town lines along the Berlin Turnpike, there's a Casper family too. I don't know them at all. In other words, they were brought up to me by other people I don't know the names of at Hartford Hospital as their patients and their doctors and nurses. And there are proofs that some of them are undercover, police forms or intelligence, but they're all involved with rackets together, fabricating transcripts, fabricating ties to people. It has their roles with foreign and domestic military too, at Wethersfield town offices, involved with the also with the people with the Marines and the Air Force, all along Route 175 from the founding locations in Old Wethersfield, where the witch trials place is next to the place where George Washington, using James Madison's plan, had to come counter-extort and force other founders to be. But they all had to leave, even with all their might unity, to the extent they could get. They had to leave slavery overt, torture overt, and extortion roles overt. Everyone had to have roles with self-value, otherwise they were sentenced. Northern colonies and southern colonies. But to counter that, they used and are using James Madison's plan. But the breaching method also deciphered that before we did, which is also not even deciphered, but they have their words instead replaced. Self-value roles be used /s of their words, leaving out what they declassified about that, leaving out how and why no one had free speech at the time. All exception nature, like even them telling us to get free speech in the Constitution unabridged. Those are demonstrations of the same thing. People are pretending that's evidence. It's not. There's a nature debate forced, using all new any kind of fact or truth for a lie to get over on those principal truths. War is an extension of the breaching method that came before the First World Wars. War is an extension of that which criminally re-engineered, tactically, criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. The syntax of the names of the people of the sciences as collusion /s with use of it /s, not just there. And before there, at all location /s. And then further and further there. And then further and further, not just exploiting it there, at the difference between there or right back at all locations /s, increasingly needing as identities of syntax nature, identities of difference, like as jobs. And the nature of jobs, nature itself and our founders demonstrating not to leave out how the difference between the witch trials as the courts roles, criminally foreign influence, the police forms roles, the prisons roles. How come we left out the prisons clearer than day, recorded, involved with predicate acts with people, they're prisoners before they got caught, and the names next to connected body dumping spots. They have connections even though they're reported different killers. And with those killers and the names next to the body dumping spots, with the people at the prisons, involved with tortures with them, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, fake motivations, all motivations real. Oh, because I read this in a database. We're just trying to make the corrections. We got out of hand. In other words, they're fake. They're changing and faking what's recorded, including at campuses, filmed 24/7, including with a whole bunch of different countries involved. There are conscious uses of guilt associated with that here or there, where there's worse than criminal incompetence, where they share kids here and there. And they want to speak about security and strategy. Strategy, until you have the suburbs, how they were designed. You have until you have the design of the campuses sickly distinctly A through Z, but also sickly non-distinctly communicating other than James Madison, and our founders behind him communicated as those portion of Native Americans speaking for everyone, speaking for the human species body, as the face of James Madison too. Because that's the value of the Constitution unabridged, and simultaneously, hyper additionally, of why and how there's an amendment that we have right to that we're supposed to make understood, how and why we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. measured and maintained by this breaching method are identities of the law that are collusions with itself, with rackets, with that, through ourselves. Everything the breaching method does at countries A through Z, it does it through those own the human species bodies of individual bodies' names. That's why they use the words like scholar, diplomacy. Scholar just means you went to different campuses. We have to be academicians, black pupils. I'll see the whites of eyes, none yet discern. Because when you do, if you do it properly, you discern also a breaching method involved with black and white appointments, tactical ulterior from nature's communications with black and white. Because of its identity, to the extent we can discern, it comes with its complete identity of relationship to itself. And the value of that equally, all three increasing as value if we pay attention. Vaccines, I teach us things, but long. Please, Scott Ritter. Weathersfield police have roles with other Marines and Air Force people and people, I don't know, different Army people and people associated with a Justin Kovinskis. I don't know his brother's name. I never met him. And Mark Violet and a Mike Violet. And they were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, influenced to have people take their pictures around me. I never had anything to do with them on campuses. They made two quick exceptions with an air when I walk time where I'm going to walk by with a Mark Violet, increasingly planting evidences with an O'Brien family and people at and next to the Connecticut Capitol. I don't even know their names. And people at three spots at the end of the Brown Turnpike. And these are some KKK. Mark Violet and Justin Kovinski said their families are involved with KKK Black and Latino theme, planting evidences against me. Identity theft, fraud, slanders with kids with intelligence families that used to live in my area. They have roles with police forcing past people with an arrest to roles. As their roles with untimely deaths at Trinity College. And people that from other areas that make confessions on my street, like a Robert Rodriguez, to make it fake natures of ties to me. A Robert Rodriguez is also with other people along Route 3, involved with criminal enterprises, and people at New Britain Superior Court, involved with Central Connecticut State University, on all sides of it, who also have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed something to do with all along Route 3. And people next to parks, next to campuses. There's a Rick Ciampaglione who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed he has roles with corners of buildings, with kids and other kids, and then adults. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. A Leahy family is involved fabricating conversations with people and sequence related and ties to people and timing of their relationship sequence. You have fake exceptions. Also with the former Mayor Gold and his family members and neighbors. And people associated with interstates, with medical locations, increasingly with the people that counter things like drugs, increasingly collusions attaching people to fake uses of drugs and alcohol. All exceptions that appear to demonstrate other. They show the same thing. People searching for tools to use for lies, too. Fake motivations. Increasingly, there are judges speaking fake things into records with the ones involved with predicate acts from other areas on my street. Like if there's a Judge Smith involved with people, Heather Hansen has involvements or knowledge of people involved. She has involvements with at least 2 home break-ins in my area, but she has knowledge of at least 3 of them with the people involved. As the ones involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and 3 of his co-defendants, a Thaddeus Grabowski, a Dominic Lapriata, and a John LeConte, his daughter. is also involved with this Joshua Stryker at Trinity College, who's one of the ones who've been planting evidences with a whole bunch of people tied to the name Kololo too, lying about themselves and me, and to my teachers behind my back, and to my educators, has something to do with their roles. So Joshua Stryker is one of the ones involved with conversations with a whole bunch of people tied to the corner of the street, like Fairlane Drive and Griswold Street. Has a Joshua Stryker involved with a whole bunch of people at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, involved with Wethersfield, Connecticut, also with other corners on that street, per Mark Violet, who also sought mail from one of the people from other areas to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They have roles with this O'Brien family, also with some black KKK theme, Confederate flag theme, in all these different countries. Sick fakes together at the Britain Central Connecticut State University in the Britain. It put people I didn't even have classes with in grammar school, but we're in the same grade, also referred to as the same class note. And then put me with fake ties, fake natures of ties to the people around me. As their roles with Russia and other countries in the news, they're involved with all kinds of natures of drugs and medicines crimes together. And the fake punks speaking about things like drugs, leaving their roles with drugs and medicines crimes. The same people countering it. They have the roles where they store all the things and they pretend they're legitimate unmarked police forms. The differences of the different security people. These are fire department campuses running in. A whole bunch of fire and intelligence people tied to a Jody Pierce and a Fred Grisette with a Paul Abtett and his sister. I don't know them in other words, but I know that they're recorded involved with a Leahy family. The non-verbally is with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, confirmed, involved with sealing media fake transcripts with them roles. People with the Connecticut District Court, also with the Brian Silver, identity theft, fraud, slanders with prosecutors and judges and their family members. Further involved with proven child abusers, leaders of kids, First Force, and there were other use/s of that role. There are uses of tactically juxtaposed distinct natures of organized crimes and of the difference of that have been involved with also remote uses of America's identity here by our own and remote uses of Saudi Arabia's identity here and there by their own at the same time as collusions with a breaching method, a hyper foreign. So it's important to get them on paper, one name and sequence, please, because the ground use of location/s is one of the things that locks them all. Offensively, like with this Joshua Julian on the Facebook page of the principal child abuser as one of the roles that forced that, as one of the roles also involved with World Trade Center predicate acts, and then and roles with the child abusers to cover that up. But it's also roles with the difference of them criminally foreign influence, the interbranch and intelligence families, or the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, or the news families, or their neighbors, like their roles with nurses. In other words, we're going to examine that and how the experts, when they defend their jobs, they can't afford to discern those kind of convictions proper with theory, let alone with convictions straight up, like formal. In other words, regarding reality, like at elderly homes, like space and positions, like with how the suburbs were designed, let alone the suburban/urban and the urban. And, an exception nature is what this is about. So it's rural, any of that. But syntactically relevant to that. The syntax defenses are simultaneously recorded and haven't been recorded, effectively used to measure and maintain self-valued roles with what can't defend its syntax nature. And us at the same time at countries A through Z. Here at the knee. Boxing. I teach those things. Please, Scott Ritter. I've been begging Judge Napolitano. There are proofs that the intelligence community, in other words, it's recorded, they're changing and faking what's actually communicated and what they think about it. Please fix the fake conversations with me about that WFSB has. Also was them making ongoing. There rose a whole bunch of people from Weathersfield who are involved with them with Rocky Hill locations and next to their location, who are also have their educators involved with them. Also, a Perone family and a Kerr family also recorded capacity demonstrated confirmed with the Violet family and people at Hartford Hospital and next to them, like, and with mayors, a former mayor Gold, increasingly involved with people in my second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade class. Stacked ways with untimely deaths and body dumping spots rose with use/s of that and various natures of criminal enterprises involved with such games with kids in grammar schools and in middle school, putting them fake ties, fake natures of ties to other kids. Also with people at next, increasingly next to a kindergarten school I went to for 1 year, then it closed in Weathersfield. People next to that school are increasingly involved with people that worked at it, involved with sociology and like psychiatry, increasingly involved with their kids, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and all delusions wrought too. See, the psychiatrists from America to Russia to Ukraine, their criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. And that was there but before their parents were born. Because there's a hyper foreign involved with the criminal foreign influences clearer than day, black pupils. See the suits and ties, encounters, and exceptions. So our founders communicated that war is about revolution, and revolution is about getting that which is entrenched, demonstrated how it is entrenched, more finite and greater than all acceptations of the Constitution that have been are allowed. Otherwise, that body is sensed, even if they're a majority of people, even if they are everyone, and that is adapted to black pupils. And defenses of, in other words, things, just things belong. See my video. And see my newest video, so too, please, on the section that has songs. It's a yellow picture on it on my YouTube channel, and it's a song that is called "There Is Always Sun in California." Please, someone give me, tell me, try out the song. There's always sun in California. In other words, out here to the rest of folks, to the rest it goes away. Out to California's where the best folks stay. California. Thank you.